Ethiopia. Executive Summary. Ethiopia's constitution provides for an ethnic-based federal system of government. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed leads the Prosperity Party, which controls the government. The Prosperity Party dominated the 6th general election held on June 21, winning 96% of the seats in the House of People's Representatives, although results were only announced for 423 of the 547 seats, 77%. On September 30, a second round of elections took place for some constituencies where voting was delayed due to logistical or security concerns. Voting in other constituencies, including the entire Tiger region, remained postponed indefinitely. On October 4, newly elected members of parliament took their seats. The elections took place against a backdrop of grave instability, including interethnic and intercommunal violence, and an electoral process that was not free or fair for all citizens, although observers assessed the result generally reflected the will of most citizens. National and regional police forces are responsible for law enforcement and maintenance of order, with the Ethiopian National Defense Force sometimes providing internal security support. The Ethiopian Federal Police report to the Prime Minister's office. The Ethiopian National Defense Force reports to the Ministry of Defense. The regional governments control regional security forces, which generally operate independently from the federal government. Civilian authorities maintained effective control over the security forces. There were credible reports that members of the security forces committed numerous serious abuses. In November 2020, fighting between the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and Tiger People's Liberation Front regional security forces resulted in protracted conflict in the northern part of the country and reports of serious and rampant abuses. The conflict spread into neighboring Amhara and Afar regions, where serious and rampant abuses were also reported. By years and access to the majority of the Tiger region remained limited, except for the regional capital of Mekelle, resulting in a lack of reporting and difficulty ascertaining the extent of human rights abuses. Meanwhile, political and ethnic tensions led to violence in other regions, notably in Benishangul Gumuz, Oromia, and southern nationalities, and peoples region, as well as credible reports of abuses of human rights throughout the year. Significant human rights issues included credible reports of unlawful or arbitrary killings, including extrajudicial killings by the government, forced disappearance by the government, torture and cases of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment by the government, harsh and life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary arrest and detention, political prisoners or detainees, serious abuses in a conflict, including reportedly unlawful or widespread civilian harm, enforced disappearances or abductions, torture and physical abuses or punishments, reports of unlawful recruitment or use of child soldiers by militia groups, serious restrictions on free expression and media, including violence or threats of violence against journalists, unjustified arrests of journalists, censorship, and the existence of criminal libel and slander laws, serious restrictions on internet freedoms, substantial interference with the freedom of peaceful assembly, serious government corruption, lack of investigation of and accountability for gender-based violence, trafficking in persons, crimes involving violence or threats of violence targeting members of racial or ethnic minority groups, and existence or use of laws criminalizing same-sex sexual conduct. The government at times did not take steps to prosecute officials who committed human rights abuses or were involved in corruption, resulting in impunity for abusers due to a lack of institutional capacity. The government took some steps toward holding government security forces accountable for abuses. There were reports of killings of civilians, rape, and other forms of gender-based violence, forced displacement, and looting and destruction of property by the Tiger People's Liberation Front, Amhara regional militias, and other armed groups, and these were widespread in the context of the continuing conflict in the northern part of the county. Unnamed groups of ethnic Gumuz militants reportedly carried out attacks and killings of civilians in various parts of Benishangul Gumuz throughout the year. local militia groups in Afar and Somali regions reportedly carried out attacks and killings of civilians as part of a long-running regional boundary dispute in the northeast part of the country. The Oromo Liberation Army (SHAME), an armed separatist group with factions in western, central, and southern Oromia, reportedly killed civilians and government officials in many parts of Oromia, especially in the west.